I want to start with this hilarious story. Apparently, palace officials have been trying their hardest to strip Harry of his titles, but Charles.
The royal drama is no longer just simmering, it's bubbling over. There's serious talk going around that King Charles and the UK Parliament might be preparing to take back Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's royal titles, and Meghan's actually lost it. That means his and her Royal Highness could soon be history. If this happens, they'd be just Harry and Meghan again. It might sound small, but in royal circles, it's a full-on earthquake, something that could ripple across the Commonwealth and give the tabloids a whole new feeding frenzy. Things really heated up after one BBC News interview clip featuring Harry went viral. In it, he called for reconciliation, but behind the scenes, people claim that moment pushed Prince William past his breaking point.
There have been so many disagreements, differences between me and some of my family. This current situation that has been ongoing for 5 years with regard to human life and safety is the sticking point. It is the only thing that's left. Of course, some members of my family will never forgive me for writing a book. Of course, they will never forgive me for lots of things. But, you know, there is. I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore. As I said, life is precious. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff.
Now, what was this guy thinking? Now there's a wave of speculation spreading fast. Is William really driving this whole operation? Is Parliament about to dig up some dusty rulebook to kick Harry and Meghan out of the royal fold? And what is King Charles actually doing while all this unfolds? All eyes are turning to William. Sources say he's not just upset, he's furious. Apparently, he's been sitting on this plan for months, just waiting for the right moment to act. According to reports, things snapped when Harry talked about their father's mortality not long after Charles's cancer diagnosis was made public. That remark, insiders say, made William feel like enough was enough. One source even claimed if William really wanted peace, he would have stayed quiet. But no, those HRH titles are getting stripped. The word is, William's not just angry, he's taking action. Allegedly, he's been working behind the scenes to convince members of Parliament and royal staff to support the removal of any special status the Sussexes still enjoy. Some insiders even say that Conservative MP Bob Seeley has taken late-night calls from William's aides, and there's been hushed talk of private meetings in Buckingham Palace to hash things out. One scene that keeps popping up in whispers is almost cinematic. William alone in his study, fuming, telling his team, "This ends now." There's even gossip about a file titled High Treason Against Monarchy, packed with Harry's missteps. Yeah, it sounds pretty dramatic, but we're literally talking about royal princes here. According to someone close to the matter, William's had it. He's doing everything he can to shut Harry down inside the institution. If true, then William may be the real force pushing this whole campaign forward. And then there's the Instagram post. In early May, a close business contact of Meghan's posted a gift basket filled with skincare products. The caption read, "Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex." A small detail maybe, but not to William. Back in 2020, both brothers had reportedly agreed not to use those titles anymore. So seeing that tag on a public post felt to William like a slap in the face. One royal reporter said the moment fans noticed that HRH, everything exploded again. For William, it looked like Meghan was flaunting what they both promised to leave behind. Sources say he saw it as more than a branding misstep. It felt like she was going against the Queen's wishes, and it didn't go unnoticed. Apparently, that post was the final spark. William started reaching out to supportive members of Parliament, urging them to back a formal move to erase the Sussexes' royal privileges. According to one insider, William believed Harry's behavior was disgraceful, and after certain footage hit the news, he was immediately messaging Bob Seeley and others. Make it happen. Yes, that's how urgent this stuff has become. Rumor also has it that William may have quietly rallied a few powerful media figures to help shift public opinion, planting negative stories to increase pressure on Harry and Meghan.
Predicted almost everything. It'll end, and it'll end bad. And I wonder if Harry's going to go back on his hands and knees and say, please, I think Harry has been led down a path.
It might sound like a royal drama scripted for Netflix, but people close to the family say this isn't fantasy. If even part of it is real, then the once diplomatic older brother has turned into a determined strategist with one clear target: cutting ties with Harry for good. Things got even more intense once Parliament stepped into the spotlight. Behind the scenes, chatter about an extreme legal tactic started circulating. And oddly enough, the law people keep bringing up is over a century old: the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. Originally passed during World War I, this law gave Britain the authority to strip royal titles from those seen as enemies of the crown. Back then, King George V used it to sever ties with German nobility and even changed the royal surname to Windsor to erase the family's German roots. Fast forward to today, and some say that very same law might be making a comeback, not to deal with foreign enemies, but to go after Prince Harry and Meghan. These aren't just whispers in political circles. In late 2023, Conservative MP Bob Seeley made headlines when he said he wanted to amend the old Titles Deprivation Act specifically to address the Sussex situation. He put it bluntly: if someone doesn't want to be part of the monarchy, they shouldn't keep the perks while openly criticizing the institution.
Now, a staggering 2/3 of Brits are calling for Harry and Meghan to be stripped of their HRH titles.
He called it a nuclear option, and according to reports, his plan is already taking shape. Drafts may be in motion, possibly even under quiet review within the Privy Council. If passed, this bill or any similar legislation could potentially give King Charles the green light to remove Harry and Meghan's HRH status and even their dukedom without further discussion. But here's where it gets more complicated. There's talk about skipping the old law altogether and drafting an entirely new bill focused on royal titles. How crazy is that? Some policy advisors and think tanks are backing a concept where Parliament could create a list of royals accused of bringing scandal or shame to the monarchy. Anyone on that list, their titles could be stripped immediately, no questions asked. Inside the Department of Culture, things have been heating up too. A draft proposal allegedly started making its rounds, quietly passed among selected MPs, and outside government offices. The public is starting to make noise. A petition calling on the House of Lords to investigate royal titles gained traction fast, pulling in tens of thousands of signatures. It's already landed on the desks of at least 2 lords who are known for speaking their minds. If either of them publicly names Harry in Parliament, that could trigger a formal debate. All of this is highly unusual. The 1917 Act has only been used in times of war. Back then, it was about distancing the British monarchy from the German Empire. Using it now, in the middle of a family rift, would be unprecedented. But this situation, it's moving fast, and there's no telling how far it'll go. Some advisors in the Conservative camp are confidently telling the King's inner circle that the public is on their side. But not everyone agrees. Others think this whole situation is getting far too personal.
17 inaccuracies and lies. It was hugely damaging to the royal family. And if you actually believe in the royal family, as I do, and you think Britain's one of Britain's most important.
One longtime MP admitted off the record that while Parliament thrives on drama, this one might top the charts. If it goes ahead, it'll be remembered for a long time. Legally, it's not a straightforward move. Stripping a dukedom, like the one Harry received in 2018 through letters patent, would need parliamentary involvement. On the other hand, removing his or her Royal Highness is a bit easier. That could be done with a fresh letter patent issued directly by the King. The proposed bills floating around would simply give Charles the authority, either solo or with input from a small parliamentary group, to make it official. What's being whispered behind closed doors is that a confidential committee could be set up, potentially with support from multiple parties. Their job? Go over every controversial moment involving Harry and Meghan. If that happens, and after 40 days of review, Charles could be handed a formal certificate to revoke their HRH status. That certificate would then be presented to both houses. But here's the catch. If Parliament just lets it sit there and doesn't object, the titles vanish. No debate, no reversal. Insiders are already saying a rapid vote could be triggered if Harry makes another explosive media appearance. And looking at what he's been up to recently, it doesn't seem like that would take long. Which brings up the big question. Will Parliament really wade into what is traditionally seen as a royal family issue? By law, only Parliament can remove a title. But the noise right now is so deafening that it's hard to say where influence ends and legal authority begins. And where's King Charles in all this? Why the silence? Outwardly, he's calm and composed. After Harry's most recent headline-grabbing interview, the palace released a generic statement calling it a private family matter. Even during more sensitive issues like academic controversies, Charles has kept things diplomatic and measured. Given his ongoing health concerns, he doesn't appear interested in escalating public tension. At official events, he looks pleasant enough, pinning on ceremonial ribbons and smiling for cameras, but it's starting to feel like he's just going through the motions. Privately, though, sources say he's furious. A senior royal correspondent claims Charles is more hurt than he's ever been. The mention of his illness during Harry's interview reportedly cut deep. One insider put it plainly, trust has been broken completely. Another palace aide suggested that what upset Charles most wasn't just the criticism, it was the way their lives were being turned into entertainment for profit. Still, Charles hasn't publicly fired back. Instead, he's taking a calculated approach.
Wouldn't it look a little bit petty and peevish if the king said, I don't like what you've written?
Some say he's quietly letting William push forward. There are whispers that Charles didn't just approve William's strategy, he helped shape it behind the scenes. After all, he is the man in charge, isn't he? He's upset, but he's staying strategic. No need to stir the pot when William seems eager to handle the mess. Allegedly, he's told close staff to let Parliament handle the politics. If the decision lands on his desk, he'll be ready to sign it. No speeches, no drama. Of course, there are still murmurs that Charles hasn't fully given up on reconciliation. Maybe he thinks William's going too far, or maybe he's worried about public perception. Some courtiers insist he's been telling William to slow down and think about keeping the family together. But at this point, all of that sounds like palace gossip. The only clear fact is this: Charles hasn't stepped in to stop any of it, and his silence is starting to say more than any official statement ever could. If he wanted to end this quietly, he already would have. So, how's the public reacting to all this? Well, if you take a stroll through British media or scroll through social platforms, it's clear this isn't just controversy anymore, it's a full-on circus. Prince Harry's name is being dragged through headlines daily, often labeled as the nation's biggest disappointment, while Meghan is taking heat across the pond as some sort of royal con artist. And it's not just criticism, it's mockery too.
It's the worldwide privacy tour. Come on. We want privacy! We want privacy! It's the worldwide.
For weeks, memes have flooded the internet. Harry's been edited to kneel before Parliament, while others show the couple's kids swapped with royal corgis. It's absurd, but it's everywhere. Hashtags like Sussex Strike Force and Strip the Sussex have been trending non-stop in both the UK and the US. Even live streams of politicians venting about Harry's title are gaining huge audiences. Then there's the polling. Recent surveys are painting a brutal picture. One in particular claims that nearly 60% of Brits now support removing Harry's dukedom. That kind of majority hasn't shown up in royal polling in years. Older generations are especially unforgiving. According to one survey, people over 65 hold a stronger dislike for Harry and Meghan than they do for Prince Andrew. That's saying something. Harry's favorability is sitting at just 27%, while William enjoys over 70%. Meghan's numbers are even worse. Only 20% of Brits have a positive view of her. Bottom line, the tide has turned against them. In the UK, their brand has lost whatever glamour it had left. The calls for consequences are growing louder by the day. British media isn't backing off either. Some outlets are practically cheering on Parliament. One editorial called for swift punishment over Harry's public jabs at the monarchy. Another article gleefully described the revival of the Titles Deprivation Act as a necessary purge to clean up the royal ranks. Even traditionally formal papers are weighing in, warning that the monarchy can't keep surviving scandal after scandal, especially when the damage is coming from inside the family. On morning news shows, hosts talk about this saga like the outcome's already decided. Some confidently predict Harry and Meghan's titles are finished, even though no formal decision has been made yet. And it's not just Britain. International voices are chiming in too. One prominent public figure openly urged King Charles to act now and remove their royal titles. Global news networks are covering it endlessly, with commentators picking apart every angle. Some even claim the feud is casting a shadow over Charles's reign. Late-night American comedians have picked it up too, throwing in punchlines like, "Your move, Queen." Twitter's flooded with threads tagged number Royal Bloodbath, where people joke about Harry's fall from grace like it's entertainment. Legal experts have tried stepping in, saying stripping titles isn't as simple as people think, but their voices are mostly drowned out. Royal commentators brush them off as spoil sports. PR teams, whether official or quietly hired, aren't saying much either. Their silence is just adding fuel to the fire. "This quiet is deafening," said one royal journalist. Meanwhile, in Hollywood, insiders are being quoted with lines like, "Why did it take this long?" In short, the public mood is unforgiving. And right now, it's less about process and more about spectacle. The Sussexes are facing a wave of outrage that's showing no signs of slowing down. If Harry and Meghan lose their titles, the fallout could hit their brand hard, especially where the money's concerned. Their biggest media deals, those multi-million-dollar contracts with streaming giants, were built around the appeal of royalty. That crown connection was the main draw. But now, imagine network execs watching the news and wondering if the public will care as much when it's just Harry Markle. Without that royal edge, do the Sussexes still sell? Would people really line up to watch Meghan whip up recipes or Harry narrate a documentary if the royal label's gone? If their popularity dips, companies might hit pause on projects already in the pipeline. That long-hyped memoir could suddenly feel too risky to release in the UK. Other collaborations might get quietly dropped before they even go live. Take the podcast deal, it was already divisive. Stripping the HRH might make sponsors nervous. Advertisers could back out, and networks might start second-guessing the investment. Some are already joking about it. That ex-prince's paycheck? They say it might be on hold until the headlines settle. In the worst-case scenario, contracts with morality clauses could give companies an excuse to bail altogether. No one knows for sure what will happen, but the vibe right now, any cash tied to their royal identity might be hanging by a thread.